I am so excited to dive into yet another epic Rebel Radio conversation with my new friend, Ann. Ann, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you. It's really fun to be here. Looking
I
forward to it.
love it. So, before we went live, I shared a little bit of your numerology with you, and I'm curious what was something that was like, oh, wow, or a big takeaway that you came out with that?
Probably the thing that stuck with me most was when you said that I probably had a lot of anxiety, especially when I was younger, and that is certainly true. And
Mm-hmm.
that I was empathic and took on a lot of emotions, not knowing if they were mine or other people's. And I'm happy to say that I've worked through that, and
Yes.
I might be empathic still. I mean, I can
Yeah.
pick up an energy for sure, but I'm not affected by other people's energy the same way I used to be.
Yeah, I love that because you now know with a level of emotional mastery, you know what emotions are yours and what are others, so you can set up those boundaries around
Yeah, kind of. I would say that they're all mine. Now that I
Right.
know more, I would say they're all mine, but I know how to work with them and to let them pass through so that then I don't get affected next time.
I love that. I love that. So tell us a little bit about you. You've got a really interesting number story that you shared with me in an email. I would love for you to share about that, but also I want to hear your story because you have this incredible story of understanding the power and technology that we have available to us in the body.
I do, yes. So I do have some fun numbers happening right now. I just turned 55 last week. And a few weeks before, I was kind of thinking it's a great number because I was also born in 66. So I wonder if any other numbers work that way. And I worked out I had been in the US for 33 years, just
Mhm.
turned 55, born in 66. In 77, I traveled around the whole world. And in 88, that was the year I moved out to the US. So that was kind of fun.
That's so fun. I remember I just geeked out on that when you sent me that email. It was so fun.
Yeah, and I published my book last year. I published it, and I did this consciously because you couldn't randomize when it was going to be published, but I
Mhm.
self-published my book on 11/11/2020 at 11:11 and 11 seconds in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
That's when I
That's
pushed the
so
button.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I just felt that was really fun. So the book tells my story. So
Yeah.
I had a lot of trauma growing up, two alcoholic parents. I was adopted as well. And when I was 19, I woke up one morning and found my mother dead in the bathroom.
Mm.
And that was a huge trauma for me, but I didn't realize how much I was holding it in and didn't process it at the time. So when I was in my late 30s, I had two young boys. I was a stay-at-home mother, and I should not have had a lot of stress. But
Mm.
I was at a doctor's appointment one day, and he asked me what my stress level was because he could tell it was higher than it should be. And it was an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I knew straight away it was because the tears from that event 20 years earlier were still so close to the surface. I just
Mm.
hadn't dealt with it. So he used this one technique with me. It's called EFT. A lot of people have heard of it.
Yeah.
It's also called tapping, short for
Tapping on
emotional
your face
freedom.
and talking about your feelings.
Yeah, short for emotional freedom technique. He used that with me for about 15 minutes. And I walked away from that appointment being able to tell the story of her death with no emotions arising. There weren't
Mm.
any tears. I could just say the words of what had happened. And to me, it was amazing because I've been doing all sorts of things over the years, like diet changes and different practices, and nothing seemed to make a real change. And this
Mhm.
felt different. So I went home and I had a cat, a 17-year-old cat who needed daily saline shots. He was just starting daily saline shots. And the first one I did, my hand was shaking so much. There was no way I was going to be able to do it every day. So I decided I'd try it out. And so I tapped about my fear of giving him the shot, my fear of hurting him, my memories around injections from the past. And the next time it just slid right in. And it was just
Mm.
magical. And every day after that, it was the same. So it was like a permanent shift. And at that point, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So I started noticing during the day when I felt emotional and I would tap about it. And I found my mind becoming more peaceful. So I wanted more. It's one of my characteristics, I suspect. So I wrote down all my traumas that I could remember, everything emotional that I could remember from my childhood, and I went through them one each evening. And at some point, I realized that my mind was quieter, and I realized the
Mm.
voice that had been in my head that used to judge me and used to judge other people was my dad's. He had
Mm,
programmed me so that I did the same thing that he used to do.
right.
And when it was gone, I could look back and see that. I couldn't see it in the time. When I was doing that criticizing, I didn't know that was my dad's voice. I had to let go of it. And then I could look back and say, okay, that was my dad's voice.
Yeah.
So that was really, really powerful. But then I went further. I wanted to go further. So I found out
Such a three.
there's different levels of awareness. Now, I know that's a word that's bandied around, and I didn't know what it meant, but now I do. So there's different levels of awareness. There's a surface awareness where you know kind of what happens on a daily basis. Like you might know my dad shouted at me, right? There's a series of words. But underneath that, there's probably some emotions, which is a deeper level of awareness. So maybe I was afraid when my dad shouted at me, or scared when my dad shouted at me. That's a deeper level of awareness. And underneath that, right, the fear, there's actually a set of physical sensations that go along with the emotion of fear. So it might be tension in my abdomen, my solar plexus. It might be tension in my jaw. But there's a group of those physical sensations.
Mm-hmm.
And once I became aware of those, then I kind of didn't feel like I needed EFT anymore. I could have used it. You can use EFT on physical things. But I was in a group at the time, and the guy said, you don't need to meditate. All you need to do is feel your feelings.
Yeah.
So
It's so simple, isn't it?
I know. And I was tapping at the time. So yeah, I was just starting tapping. So I didn't know what he meant. And he didn't explain it. But then I kept tapping and going to this group. And at some point I decided, okay, if he keeps saying that, so I'm going to try and do what he said.
Yeah.
So I did. I would do my dishes at the kitchen sink. I would think a thought, notice that I was emotional around it, maybe frustration or anger or fear. And then I would stop. I would become like a statue. I would actually hold my breath and feel where those physical sensations were in the body. And just feel them, which means I would like talk to them. It's like, okay, I can feel you right there. I can feel this tension. I can feel this fear sitting right there in my solar plexus. I'm just going to let you be. I want you to stay there. I want you to express yourself because you've been suppressed for all these decades. So now I want to feel you and let you just do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And at some point I would need to take a breath and I'd let it go. And then I'd think the thought again and find out, is the fear still there? Has it shifted? What's happened? And I would do it again. I would hold on to it again. Might be in a different place. It might not be as intense. And then I would do that over and over again until the thought no longer had emotions attached to it.
I love it.
I wanted more. I could see the benefits. I could see the benefits. So I started to lay on the couch. And I went through these collective traumas like 9/11, the Loma Prieta earthquake, the tsunami, bringing up those emotions that we all felt around those events and just feeling them and letting them go. And they would just dissipate if you totally accepted them, allowed them to express themselves. They would just dissipate. Yeah. And at some point, I realized that I could keep my awareness inside my body. So like imagine if you had a toothache or a stomach ache and you can feel where it is in the body, right? Because you've got that pain there, you can feel it. But once it's gone, you can't normally put your awareness back on that place in the tooth or in the stomach. And I found that I could hold my awareness there. And so I started working with that. This is a deeper level of awareness, right? It was the physical sensations and now it's inside the body. Yeah. So I would do the same thing. I would hold my awareness on tension that I would find, just hold my awareness on it, allow it to be, and it would dissipate. And I realized, well, what I'm doing is I'm holding my awareness on the connective tissue or the fascia inside the body. Yeah. And it would dissipate. And that's how I've changed my skull structure, because I've actually let the tension in my bones and the connective tissue in my face and my head relax.
Yeah, I find that fascinating. And I read a little bit of your story before we came on the show. I'd love for you to share about that because you shared your x-rays with me. And so you have physical evidence of this occurring. So I'd love for you to share with our audience what this experience was like for you.
It was pretty weird, to be honest. The first time I actually got my awareness inside my face and did this holding my awareness on tension and letting it go, I could actually hear it let go, and and could feel it let go. And I thought I was damaging myself the first time I did that, but then I realized it's just part of the journey, and I kept doing it. But it sounds like old fabric ripping is what it sounds like, which is just the adhesions of the connective tissue relaxing. So yeah, I mean, I was blown away when I saw those x-rays myself, because I knew I was relaxing things, and I could actually sometimes feel my bones shift a little bit, which was again weird. But to actually see the x-rays and see that my eye sockets have aligned more, and my jaw, which was way off to the side, is now more in the center, and my neck has straightened. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have that physical that you can look at and see, oh yeah, this means we are incredibly powerful if we can find this power.
Oh, I'm just covered in goosebumps right now because I love this. This is exactly what I love to talk about on the show, is the power that we have available to us as human beings. No drugs, no outside influence whatsoever, and you've completely changed your skull structure.
Yeah, so imagine what we can do.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm geeking out so big time right now. I love it. So in all of this work that you've done with yourself, I'm curious, is this part of your work? Who are you motivated to serve? How do you support others with this?
I've worked with some people with EFT. I have a group called Self Mastery that we do this work, and we read and see what else we can learn. But at this point, my goal is really to share this information, because I didn't know that we could go this far, right? I was doing a lot of these practices before, but once I realized if I just kept going and did more and actually released my past, really, had that willpower to go back and do that work, the difference it can make. So that's what I'm wanting to share.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing this story with us, because it's incredible. And I've always said, you can spew out facts and words until you're blue in the face, but when you actually see physical evidence of a change and those stories that you can share, I think that's way more impactful than, we're powerful. Okay, prove it.
Right.
You've proven it. I love that. So good. So I am curious, what does unity consciousness mean to you?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, and one that's shifted over time, right? Because again, when I started this work, I didn't know what it meant at all.
Yeah.
But as I do more of this work, I have more of a feel for it. And I know there's that phrase that, like, we're just one drop in the ocean. So we merge back into the ocean. And at this point, I feel that we all are the ocean, and we're separated into drops. And it's the resistance we have, which could be called judgment, the resistance we have to everyone else that is actually keeping us separate.
Yes.
So all we need to do,
just a little thing.
Yes, all we need to do is let go of our resistance to everyone else, right? To let go of all our judgments. And at that point, we will become one.
No big feat. I mean,
right.
Just let go of all of your resistance to all the other humans and we'll be fine, right?
Yeah, right.
I love that, though. And I think unity consciousness is a journey. I don't know that it's ever a place that we get to where all of a sudden we're all unified. I think that's the whole purpose of being human, is that we are all different. We all have different opinions. And when we can be compassionate to the other opinions, even when we don't agree with them, I think that's where unity really comes into play.
Yeah. And there's another aspect of it. So what I just said is the outer aspect, but there's also from knowing myself on the inside. And I look at this kind of like through the law of attraction, right? Which is working all the time. And I think of our whole self as being a signal that we're emitting. And that signal is negatively affected by these adhesions, by this judgment, which is stored in I believe, in our connective tissue. So once we've let all those adhesions go, then I believe our soul is quite happy in our body. It's quite happy to
Yeah.
stay in our body as long as we want it to.
Yeah.
And at that point, we can tune into spirit or unity consciousness in a pure way. But when we've got these adhesions, we're kind of distorting that signal, and we can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like turning the dial on the radio and it's not quite coming through clear. There's a bit of static there, right? It's not quite that full signal just yet. And I think that's our journey, is clearing that
and
out.
Unfortunately, I think there's more static than we're aware of. At least I wasn't aware of it. And as I went down this path, you know, as my awareness expanded, I became more and more aware of more and more tension, right? Because when I first started, I couldn't put my awareness in my body. Now I can put my awareness in my body. There's a hell of a lot more tension in there than I ever realized was there. And so I'm just working through it one layer at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important too, is that, you know, when we have this awareness of something happening in the body, we are trained and programmed not to feel it. We're trained to Netflix it, numb it, dumb it, drug it, alcoholic, feed it, whatever, right? Because we don't want to feel it. And I think that's the key, is being open to feeling it.
Absolutely. That's what I have done at each layer, right? The first layer was the words, then it was the emotions, then the physical sensations, and now the tension on the inside. Yeah. And that, to me, that's the only way. Positive thinking does not work, because as soon as you try and think something that's different, then you're suppressing the thought that you're actually thinking. And if you just accepted that thought, it would dissipate, it would go. And then then the positive is underneath, right? The positive is underneath all of our history that we store in our body in this tension. So that's all we need to do is find it and let it go.
Just find it and let it go. Easy peasy. No problem.
Right.
So, I mean, you're out there sharing this story in a big, big way, getting on podcasts. You've got this book. I'm curious, how do you see your business or your speaking career, whatever you want to call it, how do you see that evolving with your desire for unity consciousness?
I kind of see it as one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm in a good position. You know, my husband works from home. He's got a good job, so I don't need to make money. So what I realize is I'm trying to let go of that tension, right? Of any resistance. So I'm only doing these podcasts because I love doing the podcasts.
Yeah.
It's not because I feel like I need to, because if I feel like I need to, there's a tension inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing them because I love doing them. So the energy from my point of view, is good. Because that's what I'm looking for. Yeah. So I'm hoping, you know, I would like to talk to many people. I would love to travel the world, see the world more than I have already, and talk to as many people as possible. But I'm only going to do that if it's fun.
I love that. Start with the emotion first, right? And that I was saying that to you about Rebel Radio, is that this was a passion project from the very beginning, and it's grown into something that I could have never expected, and I did not plan or strategize, and it just became this. It had a life of its own because I love it so much. And it's that joy of every Friday waking up and like, it's Rebel Radio Day. And I get so excited, and I get to speak to incredible humans and have these conversations. It's that feeling state behind it, not the result that you get from it. If you get a result at all.
Yeah, because if you're just in fun and if you're in that state, that's the signal that you're emitting, and you're going to get more of that good feeling, that fun feeling back to you again.
Yes. Absolutely. I love it. So I love that you touched on money, because that's another conversation that we love to have here at Rebel Radio is, you know, and I think you maybe have alluded to it, is that I don't need to make money. And so it takes some of that resistance, that push of like, oh, I need to do this so that. But I'm curious what wealth means to you.
Well, probably at this point, it means inner peace, because that's been my goal all along and is still my goal, to attain more inner peace. And to me, having extra money, if I wasn't feeling good about it, would just add more resistance. There is so much resistance in this world around money.
Yeah.
for a huge number of people, and even people who have a lot of money, I think also have resistance to it. They probably feel guilty. They feel like they're hoarding money and maybe should be spreading it around. There's just a lot of emotions around it.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've done in my groups is we'll just tap on the word money, right? If we tap on the word money and maybe some emotions, if we can grab them of how we feel about money, or sayings that we've been programmed with in childhood.
Yep.
Right? All that is resistance to money. So if we can let the resistance go, then it will just flow.
I love that. I love that. And I think, yeah, that's exactly what I believe wealth is flow. It's that flow of your self-love, your vitality, your energy, your self-care, your relationships, how you're being in your intimate relationships and your finances. But I believe that money is just a reflection of the flow. That once you have that inner flow, that inner peace, like you called it, then the money just shows up as a side effect of that.
Yes, that's what I'm assuming.
I love it. I love it. So good. So, what is one truth that you wish every entrepreneur or storyteller or author out there knew?
I wish they knew how to see things energetically.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think, well, again, it's another level of awareness, right? I would not have been able to see it that way previously, but we replay things over and over again in our lives so that we can experience those same feelings that we've experienced or suppressed in childhood. So it might come through different methods or different actors in our play, but they're just going to be the same things over and over again. So can we see the energy? Can we see the resistance, right? If you're asking someone for something and they don't want to give it to you, or you're trying to force someone, which is happening these days, right? You're trying to force someone to do something that they don't want to do, then they're going to push back, right? That's the way energy works. You try and push it, there's going to be an equal and opposite resistance.
Yeah.
So if you can just work with that energy and maybe do some tapping and let the resistance go so that you come across differently, you're not trying to force someone to do something, you're not going to encounter that resistance.
Yeah.
So there's the flow, right? Then the flow can happen if you're not pushing against something. So that would be
I love it. Just I think the theme of this whole episode is let it go, let it go. My audience always gets me to sing at some point. I love it. Oh, Ann, I feel like I could talk to you all day about this. As always, I just get so lit up by these conversations. I want to thank you for being on the show today, deeply. But as always, we end the show with one last question. What do you dream of for the world?
I think we can create peace on earth, heaven on earth. And I think it would be through letting the resistance go, because we're so divided. Just let the emotions on each side go, and then we can come together in peace.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for your dream.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely.